Hi, folks. I'm Bob Benny.
I'm Jesse Thompson.
We're with Bob Benny Wealth Management here in Lincoln, Nebraska. Welcome to today's monthly webinar. The topic of today's webinar is how to plan a successful retirement, 5 things to do before retiring. If you have a question, we'd love to answer your questions. And at the bottom of your screen is a
box where you can type them in and then we'll address them all at the end.
yes. So I've been doing this for 27, 28 years, helping people retire, and have a lot, helping people prior to their retirement figure some things out. And Jesse's been in this business for 9 years. And so we just have some experiences that we want to share with you, to some things to think about that people should be thinking about prior to retiring.
Yeah, so the average length of retirement now is 20 years, and that's grown substantially over the last, few decades, probably 50 years.
Yeah.
A lot of people would retire and maybe think they might live 10 years if they were lucky. Well, now the average is 20 years, and that's about 25% of the average American's lifespan. So that's a long amount of time and something that's worth planning for, not only financially, but planning for from a, I guess, just from a life standpoint of what you want your life to look like for those on average 20 years. Yeah.
And, as I've watched people retire, hundreds and hundreds of people retire over the years, it's kind of like they go into one way or another. Either they thrive in retirement or they dive. And we want people to be happy and healthy in retirement and enjoy their retirement and last their last decades or whatever it's going to be. And so that's what we're trying to, what we try to do overall with talking to people. I want people to be healthy, of course, financially, because we help with financial matters, whether it's retirement income planning or investments or estate planning or tax strategies, that sort of thing. We're going to help you or your friends or whoever we can help financially. But there's also the idea of mental health, physical health, and spiritual health. And we need to all be physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy to enjoy our lives, period, let alone in retirement. People can have more than enough money saved for retirement, but never truly enjoy it. And it's just one consideration of retirement planning, isn't it, Jess?
And I think we all have seen people like that in our lives where they retire and they just go downhill and they're not happy, even though they thought that not working anymore would make them happy. It doesn't. And so we don't want that for you. We want you to feel like you have a purpose still in retirement, because you do. And so we're going to kind of go over some things to plan for ahead of time in retirement. Not only, first, we're going to go through the basic financial things, because that's what you need to survive basically in retirement. And then we're going to go through some of the things that are going to make your quality of life in retirement more fulfilling. Right. So to get started, the first thing to do before retirement
of our 5 things
is clarify your budget and spending. So you need to have a grasp on how much money you're actually going to need on a month-to-month basis in retirement. And we talk to a lot of people and they have an income coming in and they're not quite sure exactly how much they're spending besides, I guess, what their income is. And so you need to nail down kind of what expenses you're still going to have in retirement, what ones will go away when you are retired. A lot of times for people, their healthcare expenses will go down once they're retired, as when they go on Medicare. You're not making like retirement plan contributions anymore. You're not paying the same amount of taxes that are automatically coming out of your paycheck or income anymore. And so a lot of people find that their retirement expenses tend to be 60 to 80% of their pre-retirement income. But that's very subjective, and it makes a difference also how much income you are making before you're retired too. Because if you're somebody who's making, $200,000 or $300,000, you're probably not going to need 80% of that to keep up your current, the way that you're living right now. So that's something to consider too. Another big consideration is to try to make as many of your retirement expenses by the time you get to retirement fixed as possible. So we like fixed expenses, not fixed income. Something that you're going to be going to war with when you retire is that there's going to be inflation. You're going to have an approximately 20-year span of time where things are going to continue to get more expensive. And if your income, the amount of money that you have coming in, is fixed and isn't growing that entire time, you're going to find yourself in trouble. Where on the other hand, if you have expenses that aren't going to change, but you have an income that could possibly grow and go up, you're going to be in a much better position. And an example of that is housing, because housing is one of the biggest costs that people have in retirement. And if you own a home when you retire rather than are renting when you retire, that's a huge advantage for you too, because you have that fixed cost of your housing expense.
And as people are kind of budgeting for what they're going to need in retirement, typically people spend more money in the first decade or so of retirement than later, because they have more energy. They have more things they want to do. They have family things they want to do. Maybe they want to travel. Maybe they're more active. And so we want to help people budget for maybe extraordinary expenses like big family vacations or international travel or whatever, and budget for spending a little bit more money in the first decade of retirement than the latter decade or decades of retirement. It typically goes down as retirement goes on, and we have kind of a slide for that too. So like you can kind of talk them the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. The first decade might be the go-go, do a lot of things, be very active and spending in that spending more money the first decade, and then they slow down a little bit kind of in the second decade and of retirement, and thus end up spending a little less money. And then the third decade, some of them still stay active right into their 90s, but we all slow down. And so you don't have to spend the same amount of money all through your retirement increasing for inflation. You might kind of plan that there's going to be some above average expenses in the beginning years of retirement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the second thing on our to-do list is to make sure that you understand your Social Security options. So for about half of all retirees, well, it's more than half of all retirees. I think it's like about 60 to 70% of all retirees. Social Security ends up making up about 50% of their income that they're bringing in. Of course, they make up the rest of that from pensions or investments or something, one of those things. But it makes up a much larger part of your retirement income than I think a lot of people think about. And so it's really important to understand what your options are and what the implications would be if you take at different retirement ages. And some things to consider with that are your life expectancy. If nobody in your family has lived past age 75, it's probably not a very good idea for you to wait until you're age 70 to start taking Social Security, even though you might get more. Another thing is whether or not you have other assets where, say you want to retire maybe before your full retirement age for Social Security, and you want to retire, say at like age 62, do you have other assets or something else that you can do to make up your income need while you wait for your Social Security to grow till your full retirement age? And another thing to consider is your relationship status of whether you're married or not and what your spouse's Social Security benefit will be, because when you pass away, it could benefit your spouse if you have waited and maximized your Social Security benefit, because they're going to get that when you pass away if your benefit is higher than theirs.
Right. And that's something in my situation. I'm not planning on taking Social Security until 70 because I have I'm a little bit older than your mom. My life expectancy technically is younger than hers. And so when I pass away, I want her to get the biggest Social Security benefit that she can. One of the things that we use to help people plan for Social Security, because it's very complicated, and I think probably everybody needs help. I would think most people need help. We have a kind of the state of the art software that we use for Social Security timing. And I'm not going to go into all the ins and outs of it, but we personalize this for each person's situation and their Social Security benefit, and help them figure out when the best time and the best strategies, because there's multiple different strategies to take Social Security is for their situation. And we're happy to do this. We don't charge for it for anybody, whether they're customers of ours or not. So if you are near retirement, everybody that's near retirement should at least know this information so that they can make the right decisions. Because what this is showing on the screen here is the present value dollars of different times of taking Social Security. And so just look at those numbers, $895,000. That's the present value of a Social Security stream for this couple if they live to their life expectancy. So for most people, that's one of their biggest assets, is the present value of their Social Security stream. And so it's important to put that in the recipe, so to speak, of planning retirement.
Okay.
So is this the third one we're coming on now?
We're on to number 3 on our to-do list. And that is get comfortable with the stock market. I think this gets difficult for a lot of people who are nearing retirement and are newly retired. There's a misconception that the closer that you are to retirement, and when you're retired, you should have less of your money in the stock market because it's too aggressive and because it's too dangerous. But something that's even more dangerous is putting your investments in something that's not going to be able to keep up with inflation and the amount of money that you need to withdraw. And for most retirees, they're going to end up needing to take 4 to 5% annually out of their investments to supplement their retirement income. And so if you are invested in something that's not giving you at least a 4 to 5% interest rate or performance, plus then you have inflation on top of that eating away your account balance, you are going to be in trouble in retirement.
You're going in the hole. And the stock market is a relatively safe place to have money if it's long term, particularly if it's 5 years or longer. I never want to put people's money in if they say they only want to invest money for a year or something like that. But you're pretty safe for 5 years. And when we were talking about before, most people live, ballpark 20 years in retirement. That's long-term money.
There's actually never, this is a fun historical fact for you, there's never been a 20-year period in the history of the stock market that hasn't gotten a positive return. There's never been a loss in a 20-year period of the stock market.
When I started in this business a long time ago, Jesse, 27, 28 years ago, my office was on the north end of town, and I went through this neighborhood called, we're going to show you a sign, a neighborhood called Autumn Wood. And, oh, that's not it. There it is. And Autumn Wood's on the north end of Lincoln off of North 27th Street. And it's one of these communities that you have to be 55 or older to live in. As I went through and met everybody in that neighborhood, there were of the older people that were in their 80s that had retired 20 years prior. So this was in the 90s when I did this. And so they'd retired in the late 70s, early 80s. And of these older people that had been retired for 15, 20 years, they kind of fell into two camps. Both of them had worries. One camp, their worry was, how much is the next Social Security increase going to be? And when you get to talking to them, what happened when they retired in the late 70s or so and sold the farm or rolled over their 401k, They put the money in the bank in CDs because CDs were paying real high rates then. But then they started going down and these people stayed in the CDs, and the CDs weren't enough to provide for their income and stay ahead of inflation. And now in their mid 80s or whatever, they're worried about the next Social Security increase. They're worried about how to make ends meet. The other category of people in their 80s, when they retired and sold the farm or rolled over their 401k, they put a significant amount of their money in the stock market. And the stock market had outperformed inflation so well that their worry was, how do I transfer this money to my kids or my beneficiaries without the government getting a good chunk of it? And so I'd try to help them figure that out. But I'd much rather have that worry of having too much money and avoiding estate taxes than where am I going to, how much is the next Social Security increase going to be?
And to illustrate kind of what we're talking about, let's see if I can get this to, here we go. Going back to this chart I have, it's a little bit busy, so just pay attention to what I have highlighted here. And these are the returns, annual returns of different indexes of investments, different asset classes since 1970 until the end of 2022. And so if we look at the S&P 500 index, the 500 largest stocks companies on the US stock exchange, their average annual return over that time period, even though there was up times and low times, was 10.43%. Now, if we go over and we look at the real return, that's the inflation adjusted return. So that's the return that matters the most. It's about 6.5%. Okay. And so if you were taking 4 or 5% out of your investments and were invested in something that was getting you an average of 6.5%, your retirement nest egg is still going to be growing even as you're taking money out of it and even as inflation goes up. Okay. Now, if we look at this US bond index, which is made up of
bonds,
corporate US large company bonds, the average total return is about 6.8%, but the after inflation return is 2.87%. It's less than 3%. So if you're taking 4 or 5% out of an account that's mostly made up of bonds or even treasury bills down here, your account balance is going to be going down as you're taking money out of it. And that's not a sustainable way to produce a retirement income.
In retirement, you don't want to be a race. You don't want to be in a race of between your retirement account and when you're going to die. You know, you can't time that. I mean, unless you know exactly that at age 85, you're going to die. You can't set it up. Sure as heck, you set it up and with your plan that you're going to die at age 85, you're going to live to 90 and be running out of money too soon. So we don't want anybody to run out of money. We want people to be happy and healthy and financially healthy in their retirement.
And for people who are maybe feel like the stock market is too much risk, there's some different options for people. So you can stay in the market and lower the amount of risk that you're taking and lower the amount of turbulence that you see in your accounts by doing several things that we help people do.
Right.
You can have an allocation of some gold in the account. You can have an allocation that has maybe some short-term, like right now, short-term treasury bills are a better deal than long-term bonds because interest rates are going up and that hurts bond returns.
Different things that we do, tools we use, like with your allocation, or we can put stop loss orders on accounts that if the account goes down a certain amount, it sells you out so that you don't have to write it down.
You can also invest in index funds, which are funds that contain lots of companies so that you're not exposed if one company, something bad happens with one company, things like that. So there's a lot of ways that you can mitigate risk while staying in the stock market. And then there's also some products that have insurance benefits on them where you can stay in the stock market and also have an insurance benefit tied in that will give you guarantees on things
Income
like
and-
income, a death benefit for your family, things like that, that are actually the ultimate worries of what we worry about. Oh, if my account goes down, then I'm not going to have any money in retirement, or I'm not going to be able to leave this balance to my kids. It kind of takes away those worries.
Right. So what's the next thing on our to-do list, Jess?
Our next to do is to make sure you know how much savings you need. So we talked about knowing how, the first step is to know how much, of course, income you're going to be using on a month-to-month basis in retirement. And from there, we can help you calculate how much savings you need in order to be able to comfortably produce that amount of income.
So before you click that, Jesse, how come there's a picture of a cow and a bucket there? What's that all about?
Because we like to use the term retirement milk cow instead of retirement nest egg.
Yeah, I kind of fancy myself a farmer, although I'm not a farmer. But it really, it's a great analogy, because your retirement savings, the money that you're going to live off of in retirement, it's kind of like a retirement milk cow, and you're going to milk the cow. You're not going to cut a leg off the cow to go buy a yacht or something like that. You're going to milk the cow. All that retirement money you got to pay taxes on coming out, so you don't take a big chunk of it out. But the idea, our idea, or the way I try to do this with helping people figure out in their retirement, is you're going to retire now and start milking your retirement milk cow. And we want to be careful not to take too much milk out of the cow and make the cow sick and get smaller and produce less milk. In fact, we want to take the right amount of milk out of the milk cow so that the milk cow continues to grow and grow and grow over your retirement, so that it can provide more milk as your cost of living goes up because of inflation over retirement. And then at the end, that's the best way of avoiding running out of money, is that the retirement milk cow keeps growing, and then you can leave it to your beneficiaries or to charities or whatever you want to do with it. That's the safest, most conservative way of planning this. So that's what we do.
Yep, and we have a tool that we use that can help us with that calculation as well. Show us that really quick.
This is it's the best tool that I've ever seen in our industry for analyzing investments and investment accounts and projecting how much income somebody can take out of an account. It's called Riskalyze, and we've been using it for several years. And what it does, it uses all kinds of calculations, and we can put in how much you start with, the investment amount, let's say, of 800,000, how much you're saving per month, and the year that you're going to retire, and then how much you're going to take out a month. And then it will tell us the probability of you living to whatever age we put in here. In this, we put in age 90, of you, the probability of you living to age 90 without running out of money. In this case, it's 100% probability. 95, it says 95% plus, but that's because it's 100% probability of not running out of money. We want it to be in the at least 90% plus chance. So that's a tool that we use, that we can use for you or anybody that you send to us. We don't charge for doing this analysis for people and helping them figure out how much they can safely take out of retirement, or I mean out of their retirement milk cow, without running out of money.
All right, and that brings us to our last point, and that takes care of kind of the
More financial.
yeah, more financial aspect of
Consideration.
preparing for retirement.
But this number 5 on the to-do list, create a vision of what you want life to look at in retirement, is every bit as important as the other 4 things that we talked about, the more financial things. And go ahead, Jess.
So I think a lot of times, even me, but everybody looks forward to for their entire work lives, looks forward to retirement and just having the freedom to do whatever they want and to relax and all those things.
And
And
not have to be at a job.
And
every
not
morning
have-
at 8 o'clock or whatever.
the responsibility of a job, but then when they get to that point where they don't have that responsibility anymore, they don't quite know what to do with themselves, and they lose kind of a sense of purpose, because no matter what your job is, you have to get up in the morning and go to that job, and it gives you a sense of purpose. And so a lot of times people retire and they're not working anymore. Their kids are out of the house, which is another thing that gave them purpose when they wake up in the morning, things like that. And they struggle with kind of knowing
What to do.
what they're supposed to be doing, or what their, I don't want to say maybe what their worth is in life, but sort
What
of.
you're gonna do. So what I always now talk to people prior to retirement. Somebody comes in and says, okay, well, first off, can I afford to retire? As we're going through this planning and the financial part that we just talked about, I always ask people, okay, what are you gonna do when you retire 3 months or 6 months or next year? What are you gonna do? What's your plan? And some people, they say, well, I'm gonna do this and that, or I'm gonna get a part-time job, or I'm gonna help with some charities, or I'm gonna spend a lot of time traveling or doing my hobby of fishing or golfing or gardening or whatever it is. And it's important to have a plan of things to do to keep yourself busy and happy and healthy and that sort of thing. And because it seems like in watching people retire over the 27 years, 28 years I've been doing this, that people kind of fall into two categories there. Some people stay busy and stay active and stay engaged, and they end up having a lot happier and more joyful retirement than the other people that sometimes they retire and they just go home and sit down and they don't get up. And they just physically and mentally and emotionally just decline, and end up having an unhappy retirement. So
We have 5 questions to ask yourself to plan this part of your retirement and start planning what you think that you want life to look like when you retire. And they're just the who, what, when, where, and why. Who do you want to spend your time with when you retire? What do you want to spend your time doing when you retire? When do you want to retire? Where do you want to live, or where do you want to spend your retirement? And why do you want to retire? And so,
and everybody's, not everybody, but there's all kinds of different, everybody's different, I guess. Everybody has their own thing based on what they based on their life and what they do for a job and what they do for hobbies and et cetera, et cetera.
And so, Dad, since you are about the same age as some of the people that are probably on here,
Yeah.
and don't worry, he's not retiring anytime soon. So
No.
we're not
Give you
going
that
into that.
caveat first. But it is something that I started thinking about, I don't know, 5 or so years ago, as I'm getting up there, and yeah, I'm 62 for anybody that's wondering. But in my mid 50s, I started thinking about, okay, what are you going to do? You could retire pretty soon. And so anyway, she's going to ask me the questions.
Yeah. So who do you want to spend your retirement with?
I want to spend my retirement with your mom, our family, our grandkids, and my friends. I have a lot of fantastic friends and relationships that God's blessed me with, and that's who I want to spend time with. And I love our customers. I love the friends that we have that we help with their financial matters, and that's who I want to spend time with.
What do you want to spend your time doing?
I want to continue spending my time helping people like we do here, helping people using the experience and education and skills that we have to help them with financial matters and whatever other kind of way that we can help them. I want to spend my time with my family, especially the cute little grandkids. And I want to spend my time with my friends, fishing and playing racquetball and doing those kind of things.
Okay. When do you want to retire?
Well, I have a
This will
plan.
put everybody's worries at bay, don't.
Yeah. So my plan right now, of course, it's just my plan. I don't know what God's plan is. My plan right now is maybe around 80. As Jesse has come into this business and worked for me, our plan is that I'm selling her the business at age 70, and I'm going to work for her for the next 10 years or so until I'm 80. Not, 40 hours a week or 50 or 60 hours a week like I did a long time ago. Be a few days a week, maybe in my mid 70s or whatever. But I like helping people. I like being able to use the gifts and that God's given me to be able to help people with their lives, their financial lives. And we help people with tax strategies and estate planning and their investments and whatnot. I really get a big personal satisfaction out of being able to add value to people's lives with what we do. But I also like to fish. And I like to play racquetball and things like that. So I'll spend a little bit of more time fishing.
Where do you want to live?
I want to live right here in Nebraska. I love Nebraska. I love Lincoln. I also want to spend a lot of time down at Milford Lake in Kansas, where I love to fish and I love the people down there.
And lastly, why do you want to retire?
Well, I just want to
answered it
slow
already.
down a little bit. I don't want to really retire. And folks, some people are like that. Some people just love what they do. And then some people hate what they do. Maybe they work for the state in a government job or in a corporation or with some people they don't like, or their customers are mean or whatever. That's fine. You don't have to keep working. Maybe in retirement, you start working in a part-time job doing something you like. Everybody says they'd like to be the greeter at Walmart. So I don't know if they even have to pay those people that are the greeters at Walmart, because everybody wants that job. But there's all kinds of part-time jobs or volunteer things that people can do, or if they like being productive and doing that, or hobbies, or other kind of ways of serving people and enjoying their friends and family.
So those answers are going to be different. Everybody's going to have their own answers to that, but we just encourage you guys to think through what your answers would be if somebody asked you those questions right now. So just to review what our 5 to-dos are in preparation for retirement. The first one is to clarify your budget and spending.
The second one is to understand your Social Security options, and Social Security is very complicated. And I would recommend to everybody to come in here prior to retirement. Everybody that's prior to retirement, send them over here. We don't charge anything to do this Social Security analysis and help them figure things out. And it can make a pretty significant difference in retirement income.
Number 3 is get comfortable with the stock market.
Number 4 is know how much savings you need, how big your milk cow needs to be in order to provide the milk that you need in retirement.
And lastly, create a vision of what you want your life to look like when you retire.
So retirement income planning is something we do with people all the time, multiple times a week. We don't charge anything for a service like that, whether they're a customer of ours or not. Our goal is to help people. We know that if we help God's people, he'll take care of us. So we also do estate planning, help people with estate planning, their investments, tax strategies, all that sort of stuff. And our goal is just to help people, and we'd like to help you and your friends and family and anybody that comes in our path.
So it doesn't look like we have any questions.
Well, thank you all for attending, and we appreciate your attention, and hope you have a blessed day.
Thank you very much.